Well, good morning. I love to see so many faces in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, faculty and staff, students, respected members of the community, welcome to the 2024 Youth Town Hall. Woohoo! Shortly, I will hand it over to our MC, Ashlyn Kangura. But first, I want to say a few words of thanks and gratitude for all of you who are sharing the day with us. Today, as we gather within these hallowed walls, in the house that Reagan built, we celebrate and practice this age-old format of a youth town hall, where students create dialogue about issues affecting our community and actively engage in its solutions. I stand before you not as an individual, but one piece of a collective team devoted to nurturing and empowering the next generation. To our younger audience members, you, the diligent scholars of middle and high school, your voices are heard here. You are the architects and thought leaders of tomorrow. And your well-being is the standard by which we measure the health of this community. As we move forward, we all face the task of shaping a future bright with promise. It is a vision of our students thriving as critical thinkers, creative minds, and compassionate hearts. Together, we pave the way forward to brighter days, greater understanding, and a legacy that will endure for generations to come. Thank you, and please help me welcome the fabulous Ashlyn Kangura.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Youth Town Hall. My name is Ashlyn Kangura. I'm a sophomore at Royal High School, and I'll be your MC for today's event. At this time, please stand and join me and my fellow Youth Council members and the Royal High School ROTC in the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Return colors. Change colors. March. Left face. Forward. Arc.
Thank you to Royal High School's Junior ROTC for their impressive presentation of the colors, and to our Youth Council members for helping us lead the pledge. You may now be seated. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute for hosting us for this informative and impactful event. Our discussion this year is centered around a topic that I'm sure most of those in this room can relate to: stress, the social and academic issues facing students. After collecting over 1,000 candid responses from middle and high school students in a recent Youth Council survey, we found that over 91% of students report school stress as one of or the leading detrimental factor to their mental health. Furthermore, over 70% report feeling stressed about school daily or almost every day. As a community, we need to strive to bridge the gap between students, administration, and faculty to ensure a safe space where students can learn and are provided the opportunity for growth. The discussion we're delving into today will allow everyone here to further explore this issue and hopefully lead us into new avenues for success. Steps towards change are already underway all around us, from the $2 million expansion of Ventura County Schools Teen Wellness Centers to an increase in education for both students and teachers on mental health, diversity, and overall well-being. By being here today, you are actively providing yourself with your own platform to combat these issues, a platform for action where your input will drive change. Speaking of driving change, I would like to take the time to recognize all of our esteemed elected officials in attendance from the City of Simi Valley and the Simi Valley Board of Education, along with the many outstanding community leaders that have joined us today and whose names are listed on the screen behind me. Not mentioned, but in attendance today, are Park Board Director Brian Dennert and Dr. Hani Youssef, Superintendent of the Simi Valley Unified School District. If all mentioned would please stand, and if everyone could join me in a round of applause. We thank you all for being with us today. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to the screens on either side of the stage. Throughout the town hall, there are various methods for you to engage in the discussion by submitting your questions to our panelists, sharing your own perspectives, or even providing possibilities for change. You can send in your questions by texting Reagan EDU 218 to 22333, followed by your question. Or you can scan the QR code to send your questions to our social media correspondents. Additionally, our audience engagement team will be walking about throughout the event to collect the question cards that were previously placed on your chairs. Please take a moment now to look around you and identify the audience engagement members. If you have any questions for our panelists during the event today, feel free to write them down, raise your card, and a member of the audience engagement team will collect and share it. Now, let's extend a warm welcome to our youth moderators joining the stage. Representing Simi Valley High School, we have Annika Nedanuri. Annika is a senior, currently serving as Youth Council Secretary on her second term. From Santa Susana High School, we have Audie Nair. He's a junior, also serving on his second term, and is the chair of our Youth Summit Committee. Additionally, we are honored to have joining us today 4 expert panelists on the topic at hand, each of whom can share their insight on differing aspects of students' social and academic pressures. We kindly ask that everyone hold their applause until all of our panelists are introduced and on stage. Our first panelist is Mr. Michael Hall, the esteemed principal of Royal High School and former principal of Valley View Middle School. Second, joining us for a second year is Ms. Serena Nguyen, a licensed clinical social worker with the Simi Valley Unified School District. Third, we have Dr. Jamie Snodgrass, Assistant Superintendent of the Simi Valley Unified School District. And fourth, we have our first ever student representative, Ashlyn Ro, a freshman at UCLA and former Youth Council chair. Please join me in a round of applause for our esteemed panelists. For their full bios, please refer to our event program. Although school stress has a profound impact on the lives of students in our community, its challenges are ours to confront and to face. I encourage each and every one of you to take an active role in identifying and addressing the stressors in your lives, while utilizing the insight that will be shared with you today. After all, change starts with us. On that note, let's get started with the 2024 Youth Town Hall.
Thank you, Jasleen, for the warm introduction. And on behalf of the Youth Council and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this substantially important event. So without further ado, let's begin the 2024 Youth Town Hall. Our first question is towards Dr. Snodgrass. Some of your work involves overseeing the instructional and curriculum needs of our students throughout the district. What are some major changes that have been made after the COVID-19 pandemic?
Good morning, everyone. Am I good? All right. Well, thank you for that very important question. Since COVID-19, we have made some major adjustments. During the pandemic, we obviously went into virtual learning, where instruction shifted dramatically from in-person instruction to virtual, and our teachers had to adapt, as well as our students. Returning back to in-person instruction allowed for opportunities for various growth with technology advancements. But in addition to that, the ever-changing landscape of how we are interacting with our students. In regards to the curriculum piece, we will oftentimes shift and change with the new texts that are put forth in front of our students, and those go through a rigorous adoption process. But I think that the key component is that instruction really changed in the way that our students were engaging with their teachers. And it gave us an opportunity to really see that there were opportunities for the way that our teachers could engage in a more proactive way rather than just the rote memorization, and engage in a process that allowed for more in-depth learning.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Ashlyn. How are you doing today?
Oh, good.
Yeah. This next question is for you. You were a freshman when we first went into distance learning, and you spent the entirety of sophomore year through Zoom. And coming back to in-person learning, what were some difficulties that you had to navigate, and how did it impact the experience you had in school, extracurriculars, and other activities?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say for me personally, coming back to like in-person school during my junior year was obviously for everyone, it was like a kind of like weird experience in general. But I think for me, like I was kind of more excited to come back to school because as much as like distance learning allowed for you to have like your own time to like do stuff and explore your interests, I would say, I think a lot of it for me is like I miss my friends and I miss that like social interaction. So coming back to school, instead of like thinking of it as like an obstacle, I like kind of like was like looking forward to it and kind of treated it as like a way, instead of like a setback, but a way to like grow. Because obviously COVID was like something so unexpected for us and it was really unprecedented for everyone. So I think just coming back like holistically as like a group, everyone together was, I think everyone was more excited, I want to say, to come back. So I think just having like a positive like growth mindset really helped me to like overcome those challenges. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And obviously everyone's experience is different, but I know personally a lot of students and teachers were having a difficult time when they came back to in-person learning. Mm-hmm. Were there any strategies that you used to help you adapt?
For me, I think communication was really important. So like any time that like I was really busy like balancing, like there's a lot of extracurriculars versus like your academics, I found it really important to just be in constant communication with your teachers, to like communicate like if you need extra assistance or extra help, and then also just being helpful towards others too, like if your friends ever are like reaching out for help, like being like a tutor and a friend to them, and offering them your time was something that I found really helpful.
All right, our next question is for Mr. Hall. Students often face challenges during transitional periods, such as from online to in-person school with COVID, or middle to high school, or high school to college. And as a former middle school teacher and high school teacher, you can probably have experience with this firsthand. So what advice would you give to students struggling in these scenarios?
So threw me a softball, all right. First of all, I think when you're just talking about the challenges of transitioning to the next thing, most important thing, and you hear this from me constantly, is getting connected with the school or wherever you're at in that moment. Like just get connected with anybody, anyone, anything. So when you're moving from elementary to middle school, get involved in the clubs, get involved in the activities, get involved in whatever you can. The dances, go to the dances. You may think they're dumb, but whatever, have fun. And then when you're getting to high school, start getting involved in more clubs, mock trial, just specifically on mine right now, and then the athletics. Get involved. If you're not involved in your school, then you're going to have a hard time at school. And this is me speaking actually from personal experience. When I went to middle school and high school, I really truly wasn't involved in anything. Just kind of floated in, floated out, and got my 4 years done. And when I went to college, I realized that I wanted to work with kids for that specific purpose, that it would make it a little more palatable for people and for them hopefully to get connected if it's not to to a club or anything like that, but getting connected to an adult on the campus. So you actually enjoy the place you're going to day in, day out. I would think that, Royal is where I'm at now. Currently, they've got a lot of teachers that are connected to their students, but my feeling was there was a disconnect between the administration and the students. And I feel now that hopefully there's more of a connection there between the administration and students. My statement to them, especially as we're coming back from COVID, was if you act like, to the other administrators, if you act like the warden, the students are act like the inmates, right? So in order for us to coexist together, we have to make sure that we're connecting and conversating daily if we can.
That's really insightful. Thank you.
This next question is for Ms. Nguyen. We often talk about positive ways that students can mitigate stress, but what are some negative ways that you see students dealing with this, and what are some signs that we can look out for?
Yeah, so what comes to the top of my mind, just because I see this quite often, is avoidance. And I'll give you an example, but as I'm talking, I know there might be visual people out there. Imagine that I'm building a snowball, and it's not a soft snow, fresh snow is fun to throw around, but a hard snow made of like ice, and it hurts to get thrown at. So what I usually see is the first thing is avoiding doing homework, right? It gets so stressful, there's so much going on, I can't keep up, or I don't understand this, and so the student walks away from it. I'm not gonna do my homework. And then it gets into, as time goes on, it gets into, well, I didn't do the homework, so I don't understand what's going on in my class. And so they daydream, they zone out, they're not really interested, they start to disengage from the class conversation. And then as time goes on, it gets a little bigger. Now I don't know what's going on, I'm totally disengaged. I don't want to show up to class, so we see the pattern of completely avoiding that specific class, so ditching that class, because I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be embarrassed if my teacher calls on me. I don't want to be the one that doesn't know the answer, so I'll ditch. As that gets going, now it turns into more than just one class, because if I want to ditch that class, I might as well just ditch the other classes. And so we get that avoiding school completely, not wanting to wake up, not wanting to go to school, fighting with the parents. And as you see, it's a lot. It grows and gets bigger and bigger. And when we're talking about supporting and helping students, it's easier when we start with that small snowball, where it's a lot easier to break than when it becomes, a bigger snowball, because now there are more work that has to be put in. Something that I would recommend is trust your gut instinct. If you notice a pattern that you're changes in your usual behaviors, your thoughts are out of control, you can't manage them, you start to isolate yourself. If you notice that within yourself or a friend, a peer, seek for some help. It's, like I said, it's a lot easier for us to deal with and make that change when the snowball is really small. Don't wait till you're avoiding school completely for us to bring back that support.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this next question is for the entire group, so we'll start off with Ashlyn, and then we can work our way down the panel. In what ways do you believe the integration of technology in the school system has impacted both student mental health and the overall learning experience in the classroom?
So for me personally, I think technology is an overall good thing in the school system. Just being able to use it as a resource and obtaining information, such a wide range of information so quickly is really useful. But obviously it has its setbacks, and I think for a lot of students turning to AI generated information and research has become more popular these days. And I feel in a way, as much as it is useful, I think because for me a lot of college students use it to research or even generate code for CS majors and stuff. But I think in a lot of ways it's kind of enabling the students. And I feel sometimes when we're forced to research physical text, we often get stuck and don't know what to do. So I think as much as it offers its positive aspects, I think there's also negatives. But I think as time progresses and we slowly start to learn more and more about how technology can grow to help us, I think we'll be able to garner and cultivate our learning environments in a way that actually like uses like these like new technologies for our advantage.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you believe that AI is positive in the classroom, so it has a lot of benefits?
I think that it could eventually like lead to like very beneficial things in the future.
Thank you.
Great. I would absolutely agree. There's the definite pros and cons to technology as a resource and a tool for research and engagement. It's incredibly beneficial. We have information at our fingertips, but we also, as educators, are bound to help our students understand how they can utilize technology as a tool. On the aspect of engagement, I do believe that it causes screen fatigue. Oftentimes, it's drawing our attention away. With having a cell phone in our pockets, with the notification, it's drawing our attention away from our critical thinking skills. So although it's a very beneficial tool in regards to what we have been speaking about for technology, or I'm sorry, for research, and the ability for us to be connected, is also a downward spiral for some of us, that it draws us away from engaging with individuals in person. And I would say, and I would absolutely agree, that the pros are definitely going to outweigh the negatives, because we are able to see just a vast array of information in a very, very short amount of time. So it's just a matter of, as educators, understanding that it can be very useful as a tool, but helping our students to understand how they can use it in a very productive way.
Thank you.
I'll start off with the negative. It can be distracting. So for some students, instead of reading or doing an assignment on their Chromebook, it could be, I'm going to go look up something else. But I know that our IT team's constantly working on making sure that it's safe and making sure that we block off certain content and keep our students safe and less distracted when they're using their Chromebooks. A positive would be, and I don't know if this applies to all of you, but like I have my mom and dad who are not very well versed in technology. Be like, how do you post this on Facebook? How do you log into this? And so as we see technology consistently changing and growing, and so I think it's important for our students to be exposed to this type of opportunity so that they know and they can keep up with future job possibilities along with college.
Samesies? No, just kidding. No, the positive negatives, there's positive negatives to everything. You're talking about social media in and of itself, just within the school. The negatives that come along with the social media aspects of Instagram, Snapchat, whatever we're talking about, are consistently it's a place for cyberbullying. It's a hub for that. And so it allows us to have a faceless entity. Like back when I was a kid, which makes me sound really old, but when I was a kid, I used to have to at least, if somebody was going to bully me, they had to see my face when it was happening. Now we don't, right? We're also very concerned about the amount of likes. Having said that, the positive is it's a great way for us as school to get information out there. It's a great way for us to celebrate our amazing kids that we have on our campus, all 1,900 kids of them. We can celebrate them on our social media pages. So there are positive and negatives to that. When we're talking about AI, I look at AI right now as the same as a calculator. When I was a kid, we weren't allowed to use calculator for arithmetic in school. Now we probably should, and we do because the rest of us adults do. AI is the same sort of thing. We need to find a way to utilize it within the classroom so it's beneficial to the students but does not take away all original thought. And so, and we have a number of adults that use ChatGPT when they're writing emails, right? So that's a positive. So it's just trying to find the balance between the positive and the negatives and trying to find everything that goes along with it and making sure that, again, when it comes down to social media, it's all about mental health and just making sure your mental health is solid when you're utilizing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I think I'm glad that we touched on AI because since the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously it's become much more integrated into the school system and, it can be used to enhance human creativity, but I think it's leading us into a new genre of plagiarism that we're not yet sure how to navigate. So like you guys are saying, balance is very important, figuring out how to integrate it. And like Ms. Nguyen was saying, it's important to learn about technology because our world is full of it and we're gonna have to learn how to navigate it soon. But for our next question, we're going to head on over to our social media table. So does anyone have a question from there?
From the audience, it was directed towards Dr. Snodgrass. There was a question that, is the push for more tech during distance learning causing excessive screen time in the classroom? If so, how is the district combating this issue?
Well, in regards to excessive screen time, I believe that the transformation that occurred during distance learning allowed for us to go to one-on-one devices, which was a big initiative for Simi Valley Unified. So prior to COVID-19, we did have Chromebook carts in the classrooms, and so technology was readily available in the classroom. But with COVID-19, we did see that there was a necessity for us to distribute one-on-one devices. So with that push, we were able to train all of our educators on the use of Google Classroom, utilizing various tools so that they could integrate with their students while they were at home. And of course, as we came back to in-person instruction, that did allow for additional technology use. And I would say that there isn't an overabundance of technology use within the classroom. I would say that we are keeping up with exactly what is necessary for our students to be cutting edge, allowing for opportunities for them to see that these could be paths for career and college in their next steps after they're in Simi Valley Unified.
All right, thank you. Our next question is for Mrs. Nguyen. As a licensed clinical social worker for the school district, you work to connect schools, homes, and the community in helping students achieve success. From your experience, how can students have a healthy balance between academic responsibilities and social activities, and what advice would you give to students in that scenario?
Yeah, balancing anything is really hard, and you'll never be perfect at balancing anything. But what I notice, and when I work with students that are having a hard time balancing things and it gets really stressful, is I'll start off asking them, do you have a planner? Do you know how to stay organized? What does that look like? And they look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language because planning things are not really in their vocabulary. So I would recommend highly to start there. What I usually would do is I'll print out like a blank monthly calendar, and I'll sit down with my student. I'll have them identify and write down all the important dates. When are your assignments due? When are your dance recitals? When are your practices? When are your tests or exams? When are your family and social events? Write it all down. Then when we're done with that, we'll work on a weekly calendar. So we're zooming into a specific week of the month, and now we're sitting down and we're learning how to block off time to do a specific task. So for 1 hour, I'll work on my English essay. For 1 hour, I'll work on my math project. For this hour, I'll go hang out with my friends and go run or go to the gym. Blocking it off and staying organized, and then I would suggest for them to put it on their phone so that they have reminders, because nobody's walking around with a planner. We're all relying on our phones. So having that on their reminders on their phone. But the most important piece of this is no matter how perfect and beautiful your planner is, it comes down to self-discipline. Because when that reminder goes off, are you just ignoring it and you're like, I'll just do it later? Or are you going to say, okay, it's time, I need to sit down and actually do the work? If staying organized or using a planner sounds really foreign to you, but you want to try and give it a shot, just know that it takes about 66 days to adopt a new habit. So that's a little bit over 2 months. So I just recommend to stay consistent and don't give up, because this is a skill that will help you survive high school, college, in your future career, but also your adult life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned planners and other time management, other soft skills, because that's something which is also increasing with the prevalence of technology, because we have online planners and online time management software which we can use as well, which I'm sure the school district is naturally supporting.
All right, this next question is for Ashlyn. I've known you since high school, and I've seen firsthand how much of a motivated student you are. You've been actively involved in many extracurricular activities during high school, including dance, managing multiple clubs, and youth council. Since we're on the wavelength of balance, how are you able to manage everything?
I think for me personally, I would say I agree with just having like self-discipline is a lot of it, but I know that for many students and people in general, it's kind of hard to like find that like discipline and motivation. I think there's like there's a distinct difference between motivation and like discipline. I think like motivations vary based on like your like how you feel in the moment. So I think getting into like a rhythm of like discipline, knowing that like in the long run this will like return me like good positive outcomes is really helpful. Like even if you don't feel like doing your homework or like studying for the test in the moment, like after like your test is over, like you'll feel much more at peace knowing that you've tried your best. So I think learning like the art of discipline in a way, I know it's hard, but just starting it now can like help you in the future, even if like it can seem really discouraging. But other than that, I think when it comes to like the balance between like academics and like your like social life, so like all your extracurriculars, I think it's really important to find that balance because academics can be very rigorous and it can like kind of like draw you to like your mental health can be like kind of like negative thinking. So I think having like an outlet, so like using like your dance, your sport, your arts and crafts, whatever that may be, as a way to like release all that stress is like a good way to balance like all your academic workloads. But I would also say that like and one important thing is to like just really do what you love. So like don't spread yourself out like so thin or like for like many different like activities. I would say stick to something that you really enjoy, because I think when you're applying to colleges, when you're applying to jobs, etc., the main thing that I can really like attest to is that your passion really comes through when you talk about what you love. So focusing on what you really love, I think will get you furthest in the long run, and it kind of gives you that like encouragement to keep going when you feel like discouraged in your studies.
I'm glad that you touched on the not spreading yourself too thin, because I think a lot of students, especially with college applications, they get so worked up over quantity over like the actual quality of their things. So everyone starts joining multiple different clubs instead of trying to pursue one or two wholeheartedly. So I'm glad you touched on that.
This next question is for Dr. Snodgrass. Although increasingly addressed in schools and organizations alike, discrimination is still a factor in declining student mental health, as well as increased stress. This can be on the grounds of race, sexuality, among other things. As the Assistant Superintendent, how are you and the district currently addressing and planning to address these problems?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and how we are addressing it, and it really comes down to knowledge. So the more that we are encouraging our students and our educators to increase their knowledge and awareness of different groups, and through that process of learning, then that allows for us to move forward with how we're addressing discrimination, or how we are creating stigmas within groups. And if we do not address it full front, then we're not going to move forward. So I truly believe that it is really ingrained in everything that we're doing with our educators first. So ensuring that they have excellent professional development, resources at hand, creating organizations and clubs that are on campus that also acknowledge the differences amongst not just the adults that are on campus, but also the children, and getting students that are involved in each of those organizations. Because we use the term often, but knowledge does bring power, and allowing for us to engage and to learn is just going to move us forward in that growth and in acceptance.
So you spoke on how you're promoting anti-discrimination within the district with the teachers and the employees and other people in the district, but also one aspect of that is promoting anti-discrimination to the students themselves. So whether it be like anti-discrimination slideshows or presentations or whatever it may be. So when does that usually start for schools, and what impact do you think it has on them?
So we're really fortunate that we've increased some of our counseling staff at the elementary age, and our elementary counselors, they have been creating a wealth of resources for each of our school sites. So they go in and they have assemblies that they're doing with students in large capacities, with large assemblies, but also in classrooms. When there are issues that need to be addressed, the administrators from those campuses will then contact our counselors or also district team members. We do have a wealth of coordinators and directors that are experts in areas that we can lean on to go in. And then and then moving on into the middle schools, we also have our counseling staff as well as teachers. So we're just addressing the needs as they come, but it's also laying those foundations with ensuring that all students have access to the wide range of program implementation, but when we see that there's areas that possibly need further attention, then we'll bring in a team and resources to address that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hall, this next question is for you. Before becoming principal of Royal High School, as we mentioned, you were principal of Valley View Middle School. What are some similarities and differences, like struggles, mindset, skill set, that you've seen between middle schoolers and high schoolers?
I mean, probably facial hair and tattoos. That's first and foremost. No, the struggles are real for everybody, right? All of us, adults included. Stress is a real thing. It's something that we constantly deal with. I was thinking of one of the Ashlyn's answer over there was beautiful, but also I was just thinking to myself, how do you decompress? How do you get away from all the stresses that you're constantly dealing? For me personally, it's going to sound so nerdy, but I'll play a video game every now and again. I like the NHL 24 because I'm a hockey guy. Hopefully beating a little kid in Canada at the game. But in terms of the differences between high school and middle school, you're learning to become a secondary student. You come in sixth grade or seventh grade. Well, now it's going to be sixth grade. Sorry, Dr. Yusuf. Sixth grade permanently. And you're changing classes, something you're not really used to. Maybe you did that in fifth grade between 2 classes, but now you're changing from anywhere from 4 to 6 classes during the day. That's a stress in and of itself, trying to find. You could tell when I was in middle school, you could tell a 7th grader that was there in 6th grade, and you could tell a 7th grader that was there for the first time, just by the size of the eyes in the first few days of school. And it took about a good 6 to 10 weeks. You're learning how to use a locker. It sounds so trivial, but these are things that are important to us. You're learning how your friend group is changing because in elementary school, you're there with maybe 90 of the same kids for 6 years, right? Middle school, you're now thrust into a pond of 400. And then you're finding new friend groups based off interests or whatever it is. Then you go to high school, and now you're finding a different tribe. You're finding a different group of people that are also like-minded, but it could be your sport. Like my older son played baseball, and it was his saving grace in high school. That's where the majority of his close friends still are today, are from his high school baseball team. So it's dealing with the stresses. Then the high school, Ashlyn, having just gone through this, it's real, right? The grades mean something. And so those stresses, we look at a kid like Ashlyn, who I've known since middle school myself, she puts a lot of pressure on herself to do the utmost to not only get into UCLA, which she readily deserved, and should be applauded for. Actually, let's go. Ashlyn's in UCLA, let's go. But that's no small feat in and of itself. And it doesn't matter if you're going to Moore Park, you're going to trade school, it doesn't matter what you do, just make sure you graduate. And that in and of itself is pressure to make sure that you're graduating. So just the constant pressure that's put on top of us. And the one thing I think about every time, even with myself, because I'm in charge of 2,100 people now, that's a little bit of pressure. I keep thinking to myself, nobody, at the end of your life, you're not going to sit there and say, God, I wish I did more homework, or I wish I worked more, or I wish I put more hours in at the office. You're really going to value your family and those around you and your loved ones. So just keep that in mind as you're going through these pressures. Just take a moment to enjoy your loved ones, whether it be your friends at school, which are important to you right now, or your family at home. Just make sure you enjoy them and love them, and really take that pressure off yourself a little bit. It's a lot of stress out there for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. You also mentioned changing of friend groups from middle school and high school. And I think we've all dealt with this. It's so rare to find a friend group that stayed together from elementary all throughout high school.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give for like middle schoolers who are trying to branch out or who are having those difficulty connecting with their like classmates?
What's that old song, make new friends but keep the old? like realistically, it doesn't hurt to have more friends. Just because you found a new group doesn't mean you have to shy away or hate these kids, right? You just love them all. Listen, all of us could use with more love than less, right? So just embrace every new friend that you can get. And then, sadly, this is gonna be a sad statement about me, how many friends do I have from high school still? Like 1 to 2. A lot of my friends came from after high school, from where I've made either like-minded when my kids played sports together, or, this is gonna date me right here, but got a lot of friends from Blockbuster. That's right. Still talk to them, still hang out with them. So, wherever you get your friends from, just enjoy them.
Thank you.
This next question is for the entire panel. So just like last time, we'll start off with Ashlyn and go down the line. In your experiences, what are some effective ways to build resilience or motivation in students or in yourself, helping them navigate challenges with a positive mindset?
Okay, that's a good one. I think just in general, like building resilience comes with like obviously time. I think like when you're younger, like it's like a little harder, but like as time goes on, just learning like what works for you and what doesn't. So like I think a lot of things, and I think what's really important is finding what works for you. So like when you're like studying, let's say, there's like a bunch of different techniques that many even teachers and educators like suggest for the students, but not all of them I would say works for everybody. I think there's you guys probably heard from social media and stuff, a lot of people use like the Pomodoro technique, which is like the 25-minute studying interval technique. And I think that's really good in terms of memorization and helping to space out your time where you're gaining knowledge, right? So I think finding those techniques that work for you will give you you boost your confidence and help you in the long run build that resilience to keep studying. But I think other study techniques is self-quizzing yourself, stuff like that. Just kind of exploring what will prove success for you is important, because you can some students can get really discouraged when they don't see positive results when they put in the time to study and stuff. But just learning what is effective for yourself is really, really important. And I think a lot of students just maybe don't know that yet, and so they haven't reached their full potential.
Thank you.
I really don't like going after you. All the good answers.
Oh, no.
I would absolutely agree. It definitely comes with maturity, but finding out and figuring out what is going to effectively work for you. Ashlyn has made some really excellent points, and I think it's, you've been there, you're right there, just graduating from high school, being a freshman in college, has an understanding of where many of you are going to be in a few short years. And as we age, we do find what is going to be most beneficial for us in providing that resilience and perseverance. But it's also finding what you're passionate about and engaging in that, discovering what is going to bring you joy, because oftentimes what brings you joy, you're going to continue to be very persistent in accomplishing and moving forward with those tasks. But right now, when you're in high school, there are some things that you're going to just have to persevere and push through. So you will have to figure out what is going to be the most effective for you in doing that. And it's going to come in a variety of ways, but you have to discover on your own what is going to be most effective. For some of us, it is creating detailed to-do lists. Sometimes it is that you're finding a Post-it note that you're writing down what you need to do. Many of us use forms of technology. Are you creating a Google Calendar that's going to have all of your assignments on there? So although I don't suggest moving from one thing to another to try to figure out what is going to best work for you, it is definitely finding something, and as Ms. Nguyen pointed out, 66 days creates a habit, is trying something in order for you to figure out how it's going to best fit your needs. And a lot of times it's really just digging down and getting it done. And that's the reality, is that there are times where you're just going to have to figure out what is important for you and what needs to get done, and you have to push forward. And finding and leaning on those who can help you through it. So Mr. Hall talked about family, talked about friends. Surround yourself with like-minded people who have the same types of goals and aspirations, because those people are then going to give you insight into how they are moving forward and pushing through. And really leaning on those that are going to help you through it, because there is no one that can do it alone. There is absolutely no one who can figure everything out in isolation. So figure who your people are, surround yourself with them, lean on them, and then dig in and get it done.
Thank you. So you mentioned that students should be reaching out to like-minded organizations, either in their school or externally, to be able to build the resilience and build their own character. But a lot of people in schools are reluctant to join clubs and other organizations because they feel it's too much time commitment or they're scared. So could you speak as to why students can feel that and how to overcome that?
Well, I think just innately as a human, it's difficult to go and get involved in something that you don't know anything about. So all of you that are here today are probably involved in one organization or another, and so you should take it upon yourself to find someone who isn't involved and reach out to them, because we're not just going to go and find something on our own until we're invited to do so. At the beginning of each school year, I know our middle schools and our high schools do a concerted effort to encourage our students to get involved. They have our introductory days where they're having kids come onto campus, they're learning about the school, they're involved in the different programs, they're exposed to the clubs, but that's just a little snapshot. So what happens after those first few weeks of school? Some students will get involved and they find a huge amount of success and they love it. So those of you who are involved in something and you love it, find someone who's not involved and go reach out to them. They need you. They need you to reach out to them so that they can get involved, because they really don't know what they're missing. And I think that would be my greatest advice, is that someone's not just going to go and find an organization that they want to be a part of unless it's something that they're truly interested in. They're going to find someone who's going to connect with them to bring them in.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure we're moving on. Okay, the question was about building resiliency, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So building resiliency for me, I see that it can be very challenging for people that have been through very traumatic experiences, or they might grow up and have very little supportive adults in their lives that can teach them strong problem-solving skills. But for the most part, all of you, or many of you, already have these resiliency, the tools to overcome hard challenges. And I'll give you an example. I love examples, so I have many. I'll just give you one for right now. I have a student that comes to me and said, I haven't been doing my homework. It's too stressful. I don't understand it. So I don't do it. I walk away. I give up. Okay. And then the same student comes back, another time, and she was so excited. She was like, Miss, guess what? This cute guy that I like, he texted me. I was like, okay, so what was that like for you? How did you feel when that happened? She's like, yeah, I was so nervous. My heart was beating. My hands were like all sweaty. It was gross. I didn't know what to do. Okay. So I asked her again. I was like, so sounds like it was a very stressful situation, right? Did you ghost him? No, she was like, why would I do that? No, I didn't ghost him. I texted all my friends. I texted and I called my sister because she's in college. She was like, she knows how to do this stuff. And then I responded to him. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I don't tell my students what to think, but I use their own examples. I'm like, so what I'm hearing is you had a stressful situation and you didn't give up. What you ended up doing is you went to go and ask for help. Interesting, right? So I'm bringing this example back to my student, and I'm bringing it back to you all, is the point of this story is that you have what it takes to overcome hard challenges, difficult times. And I think Ashlyn brought up a really good point, is that growth mindset, it goes back to that mindset, is when you're faced with a challenging situation, your brain is rationalizing it, is this worth the effort for me to go that extra step, for me to try? And so when it comes down to hard challenges, whether that's texting your crush back or doing your homework or trying something new, it goes back to your own mind asking yourself, is this worth it for me?
I'm gonna make mine a little more simplistic. Life, right? You're gonna learn from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up over mistakes, because we're all gonna make them every day. Just learn from them. If you continually make the same mistake, that's when you're not maturing, you're not growing. And please don't take this as the opportunity, I'm speaking for Commander Shorts here, to go rob a bank. That's not a mistake you're gonna make. Let's make smart mistakes. But really, don't be afraid to learn from them.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to head on back over to our social media table for our next question.
This question is directed towards any of the panelists. Has there been an increase in stress among the teachers and staff in the new post-COVID world?
Oh, I'll take it. I got this. Yes.
You just
yes,
wanted
there
me
has.
first.
Yes.
How can students help teachers, and how can teachers help students?
There was, going into COVID, I was at Valley View at that moment, and there were teachers there that were literally crying on day one of distance learning because we didn't understand it, because it was something new to us. And these were veteran teachers. These were amazing teachers. Coming back from COVID, y'all went weird in COVID, right? Like, behaviors have been a completely different animal that we're not used to necessarily. I was still at Valley View when we came back from COVID as well. And I swear I spent 6 to 8 weeks just simply helping out kids with lockers and locks and how to figure that out. And I didn't realize it was that big of a challenge, because usually it's 400 kids that are coming into an area, but it was 800, almost, I think it was 900 actually. And so we had kids that were literally banging their heads against lockers because they couldn't figure it out. So those stresses were real. And then on top of that, we forgot how to, be human to some extent and care. You know, when we went into COVID, some of us went into really loving situations, and even those struggled. Didn't get to see their friends. You know, I let my youngest get on his video games every day because it at least connected him to somebody. My oldest was, was full of anxiety, and so, God, if you know these kids, don't tell them that I'm saying this stuff, please. If you know my kids, just ignore what I'm saying. My oldest is full of anxiety, right? And so he had a different stress because this was all unknown as we're jumping into it, and the anxiety was very real. And then there were other kids that went into non-loving homes that had people that didn't necessarily care about them. And we have to think, like, what were their situations like? I try to put myself in and empathize, but I don't know if I want to know what their situations were truly like. So coming out of it, we were all different. We were all dealing with trauma, the trauma from what COVID in the unknown really did to us, and we're still continually dealing with it. It hasn't gone away, that trauma. It's kind of brought itself in different light, and that's why I emphasize connection over everything, because if we're connected to an adult on campus, we'll want to be there. And multiple adults, it shouldn't just be one, it should be multiple adults on campus, so we'll want to be at the campus. Jane, I'm sorry, Dr. Snodgrass.
Beautifully said.
Did I jump in on?
No, I just said that you wanted to be number one.
Oh, I did on that one. Yeah, it was the first time.
Yeah.
All right, this question is for Mr. Hall.
Oh, damn. Shoot. Hope I didn't answer.
As the principal of Royal High School, you're dedicated to preparing students for what comes after their secondary education, whether it be college, careers, trades, or anything else. Students often get caught up in working towards their future and forget to enjoy time in the present. What is some advice or insight you would give to students in these scenarios?
Man, live in the now. We do. We tend to focus on the future, and we focus so hard on the future that we would put ourselves in situations that don't allow us to enjoy our friends. Mm-hmm. There may or may not be something going on right now called water wars. And those, I don't know anything about it, guys, I don't. But if I did, hopefully you're being safe. But on top of that, hopefully you're enjoying yourself. That's part of the fun of high school. It's part of the fun of being a senior. All of this is supposed to be fun, right? You don't want to take your fun to a place where it's just out of control. You want to be within control. You want to make sure that you're enjoying yourself, but you're also, like, you don't want to make someone else unsafe or feel unsafe. So you have to find those happy boundaries, right? But that's what go to the dances, man. There's winter formals. There's prom coming up for seniors and grad night. Go to all that. Go enjoy it all, because it is the most, or football. Your team can go 0-10. It's still fun.
That's right.
All right, that's important. I don't know, I was just not speaking from experience.
And Ashlyn, as a recent high school graduate, did you have any insight on that question as well?
I think, yeah, it's really important to appreciate the present. I think a big thing is like when you're with your friends and your community really like helps you to appreciate the small things. I really think it's like the small things at life that like bring joy, like continual joy to you, not just like the big accomplishments, but like the small things really are like your friends, like bringing you food, I don't know, during lunch, the small things are really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, Waterers is pretty fun. You guys should do it once you become a senior. This question is directed towards Dr. Snodgrass. You are actively involved in supervising special student needs, whether that's foster youth, homeless, and expulsions, to name a few. What are some of the similarities and differences you see between students who you work with within that population versus the general population?
Well, we do call them special populations because that's just it. They are special, and that they have unique needs. And Mr. Hall touched on this when we talked about students who weren't necessarily in a loving home when we went into distance learning. We experienced that on the daily with students who are from low socioeconomic status that are in what we would consider our foster and our homeless youth, and students who would be considered expelled youth. Oftentimes, those populations, their experiences and what they have grown up in will lead to deficits in their access to basic needs. And those basic needs, if they're not met, then they're oftentimes not able to meet the academic rigor of being in school. So when your basic needs are not necessarily met on the daily, you're living in flux. You don't know where your secure housing is going to be, possibly your next meal. That's going to lead to a lot of other insecurities in your life. And so therefore, you're at risk for not necessarily being able to academically thrive. But we talked a lot about this, it's not just about the academics, it's also not being able to engage with your peers. So individuals that are experiencing some of those difficulties don't know how to get involved. They don't have the same experiences that many of our students do that we would consider our traditional students that know how to engage with their peers in what we would consider in a regular fashion, engaging in conversations. Or even when we go back to the technology piece, they might not have the newest cell phone, or even their clothing might be just a little bit different. So there's so many challenges that they come across that we try to mitigate with programs in our schools. So we're very fortunate to live in a community that really does consider wraparound services where we, really feed into what their needs are so that the basic needs can be met so that we can hopefully mitigate some of the obstacles that are set forth before them. So I would say that there's a great deal of differences for what we would consider our typical students versus students that are experiencing homelessness, low socioeconomic status, as well as our foster youth. And just really, you're probably not going to know many of them. They are in your classes. We have a large population in our community, and they might be sitting right next to you in your classes and you have no idea. But those are the students that we really do want to try to reach because they should have just the same opportunity as a student who does come from a loving home, who has parents who are supporting them, friends that are there, that are walking by their side. So we want to do everything that we possibly can to support those individuals so that they can find just as much success as their typical peers.
Mm-hmm. And these students, as you mentioned, they come from, for many of us, unimaginable hardships that we personally would not be able to relate to. And like Ms. Nguyen was saying, with the snowball effect, they often have it's harder to get through to them. So how do you start, or how do you even begin starting to build that connection with them?
Yeah. Again, we're really fortunate that we have a huge support system here in Simi Unified, not just with members of our administrative team, our counseling staff, and our teachers, but also our community. So it's really making the connections. It comes down to that. So we know who these students are, and when we are working with the students, we're trying to connect them to adults that are on campus so that they could then create additional connections. And that's what it really comes down to, is when you have someone who cares about you, that you know cares about you, you're going to then work harder to try to make them happy. And in turn, that person makes them happy. So it's this really great relationship between the adults and the students, and then eventually that, adds on to working with their peers.
Perfect, thank you so much.
This next question is for Ashlyn. Particularly during their junior and senior years of high school, students have a lot of stress over the college application process because it's a lot of work and it can be filled with uncertainty. So what strategies and advice would you give to students who are entering the college application process and might have stress over the amount of work it can be?
Okay, so I think right now, just in general, the whole college application process is super competitive. And getting into schools, it's just really hard. And I think it's not a determining factor of how good of a student you are, how good of a person you are. It's like a piece of paper and they read your application. So it's honestly about how well you can translate you as a persona onto paper, I think. So I think when you're talking about the whole college application process, their junior and senior years is extremely stressful. I think starting early but not too early. I think starting really early is just not necessary, and I think it just makes you more stressed out. But I think planning ahead for what they're gonna ask you. So on the college applications, they have a bunch of different questions they wanna get to know you as a person, right? Because they're never gonna meet you unless you get interviews for certain private schools. They're never gonna meet you in person, right? So you're gonna have to answer these questions to the best of your ability to showcase who you are as a person. So I think knowing and kind of learning that learning curve about who you are as a person, what do you believe in, what are your values, what's important to you. Just learning about that and learning how to write that onto paper is important, because I think when they're looking at there's so many different applicants from they're all from different backgrounds. Everyone has a different story, and everyone is individually each very unique and very everyone has their different stories. So I think just translating that and writing that in a way that really showcases your talents, your skills, your aptitudes is really important. But I think stressing about it is obviously you should do your best, right, when it comes to applying. But I think stressing about it isn't really the best way to look at the application process in general. I think just taking it day by day. Obviously, I think having a timeline just to make sure you're not missing any deadlines, because there's important stuff like financial aid that you can take into account, scholarships. So I think just being organized, but also knowing that this is who you are as a person, and other people are looking at it. Just knowing that your self-worth is more than just an acceptance to a school. Each and every one of you have a plan. Everything will work out. You'll end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned time management, kind of like how Ms. Nguyen was talking about earlier with the online or physical calendars and planners and whatever it may be. So thank you for that.
All right, this next question is for Ms. Nguyen. As a social worker in the Simi Valley Unified School District, you provide short-term goal-oriented individual mental health interventions. What do these interventions entail, and how would one go about scheduling one?
Yeah, so usually when I get referrals, it usually comes from principals, assistant principal, or counselors. And when that referral comes in, I take the time to talk to all the parties involved. So that's the referring party, the student, and then also a parent or a caregiver, just to figure out, what is the root of the problem that is inhibiting the student from being successful in school. For the most part, I connect them to services outside of the school and do a warm handoff, because I rather not take away time for academics as much as I possibly can avoid it. For some students, in some cases, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Usually they might be very hesitant to mental health services because they have a very hard time trusting people or just talking about, what's going on in their life to a stranger. Or maybe they're not established a connection or connected to anybody on campus. And so my role coming in is to really just building that rapport with them, that relationship with them. And then over time, get them to, I don't force them, but eventually I get them to understand that it's okay to talk to somebody. It's not that scary, and you don't have to go through whatever it is that you're going through alone. Another thing, another intervention that we use is dialectical behavioral therapy, so that's DBT for short. What it really is that we're teaching kids how to be responsive instead of being reactive. So what it looks like is when an upsetting situation happens to us, how do we learn how to pause, to use our coping skills to regulate our emotions so that we can respond appropriately instead of just lashing out at another person. Then we learn how to be an effective communicator. So how can you express yourself, express your needs, express how you feel towards another person so that you don't say or do something that later on you'll regret. Yeah.
And then from your experience, have these interventions proved to be helpful and effective for students?
Yeah, so I would say yes and no. And no, mainly for the small population that has so much going on in their lives that short-term services just does not work for them. So what I end up doing is just adding on layers of support and checking in with them on a long-term system. But for the other population that it has worked, because we do both a pre-test and a post-test to see where your behaviors or your symptoms are before, and then we do one after to collect that data, right? Like, have you improved? And most of the time, students do tell me that it has helped them with their relationship towards themselves and relationship with other people. And I think the most rewarding part is when they're starting to recognize the pattern of behaviors that they've been stuck in that have been impacting them from being successful and breaking out of that cycle.
I think that's really important, because as much as we can look to other people for help, being self-aware of our own patterns and everything helps. At the end of the day, it's up to us to change, right? So.
Okay, this question is for the entire group. Considering the dynamic nature of education and careers, how are schools, or how can schools better prepare students for the future while preventing possible stress over uncertainty? So Ashlyn, we can start with you.
I think it's important. I know schools offer there's career workshops where people get to practice resume building and also interview skills. I think attending those, as much as it may take away from maybe your lunchtime or whatever, I think it's important just to have a general a knowledge, or at least awareness about what the future may entail. I think being future oriented is super important, but also just knowing that you can only do so much in the present, because we're in high school, right? But those of you who are really go-getters and want that experience, I think reaching out for internships, even in Simi, reaching out to maybe the animal shelter, clinics, or maybe you want to teach piano or something just that will give you human interaction that can you can use those skills in the future for your future job and internships, I think is important. And so I think that can help you for just to get acclimated to what may be expected of you for future job situations.
Thank you.
Well, each of our schools at the secondary level do offer our career technical education programs. And so those are connected pathways for our students. and there's opportunities for career exploration. So Ashlyn had some excellent examples of how you get ready for the career field with building your resume, interview skills. Those TTE classes do that as well. And each of you have those opportunities. You don't have to stick with those same career pathways, but it allows for you to get a little glimpse of what careers are out there. And then there are some that you can go and, if you have the desire or the ability, to connect with our Ventura County Office of Education, and those allow for greater opportunities for exploration in the career field. So I think that the examples of finding volunteer work, possible internships, exploring our career technical education programs, and then reaching out to our college and career counselors. So each of the comprehensive high schools have a college and career counselor that are there. They each have their own room that are on the campuses, and they have built an incredible program for you to go in and explore different career opportunities as well as different colleges. So lots of opportunities out there for you. And I know that each of our campuses do a great deal of advertisement, so you can reach out to different administrators as well as the college and career counselors, and even your teachers to see if there's different opportunities on your campus to get involved.
Yeah, I think Dr. Snodgrass and Ashlyn already covered all the amazing resources and programs and classes that are offered in our school district that can help us be a strong candidate for colleges. Now, when we're worrying and stressing about the uncertainty of the future, just know that like thinking and dwelling so much on the uncertainty creates a lot of stress and anxiety. So I would suggest, instead of focusing on things that are completely out of your control, focus on what you can. Yes, classes and taking rigorous classes and attending the workshops on how to stand out as a candidate. It's also important because colleges are looking at you as a whole person. Yes, you have good grades, but what else is there about you? Are you a resilient person? Do you bounce back from hardships? Are you a leader? So what leadership opportunity are you partaking of, a part of? And yeah, just focus on what you can and try to let go of the things that are completely out of your hand.
I mean, ultimately, that's our goal, is to get you college and career ready at the end of high school. And that means, our primary goal at the high schools and secondary levels all told is to get you a diploma, or to have you receive a diploma, earn one. And then, of course, we'd love for you to be A through G ready, which means you can go to any four-year college that you choose. We want you to leave your options open. Dr. Snodgrass mentioned the pathways. Making sure you try any pathway that's at your school that interests you, whether it be the culinary arts or the HOSA academies that we have at both our comprehensives. And then, of course, there's ROP classes that you could be a part of as well, with like the ROP auto class that's at Simi High. There's so many different opportunities for our students, and you can go for dual enrollment at the Moorpark College. At the Moorpark College? I don't know why I put a definite article. At the Moorpark College. But there's a lot of opportunities out there. At the end of the day, just make sure that you are college and career ready at the end of your high school career.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So for our next question, we're going to head on back over to our social media table.
We have two questions directed to any of the panelists, and the first one is, what advice do you have for students who struggle from imposter syndrome after achieving awards, scholarships, and academic recognition, yet feel undeserving of it, that never seem to go away? What should you do if this feeling doesn't go away by simple positive affirmations and recognizing your worth?
I mean, you guys mind if I jump in really fast, and then I'm going to go to you because you're way smarter than me.
Oh,
no. Guys, I'm going to level with you. I'm going to be honest with you that I suffer from this as well. Like
right now.
It's a reality. Like the anxiety, just that you're not good enough to where you belong. This whole imposter syndrome, it's a fallacy. You just have to see that. Well, I'm a big believer of I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now, and it took me a while to get there. I mean, I'm going to answer this question with a little bit of a self-grandizing. You would consider me successful. Yes, I'm a principal, pretty good success, at least decent. Maybe you don't consider principal success. That's cool. I get that. That's fair. I went to Canoga High. I had a 2.8 coming out of high school. I wasn't Mr. GPA. I really didn't participate in anything, and yet I got to CSUN, graduated with honors from CSUN. I finally kind of figured out school while I was at CSUN, and in all honesty, I was on academic, oh God, sorry, Dr. Yusuf, you didn't know this about me. This is an indictment more. I was on academic probation my freshman and sophomore year for college. Right? I wasn't a student. I became one when I was at college because I understood what was important to me at that point. The road to principalship was not one that I was going down at any point. I was a teacher at Columbus Middle School in Canoga Park. I was teaching there for about 6 years and then decided one day I was driving home because we lived in North Hills at that point, turned left at CSUN, and I was enrolled in classes the next week for administration, and decided at that point I'm okay at this, I'm pretty good at this. But the imposter syndrome doesn't really go away. I've been fairly successful, oh yeah, all right. I've been fairly successful at the principalships that I've done, and I still don't believe I'm good enough to be where I'm at, right? So it's always just sitting there kind of giving myself the reaffirmation that, you know what, man, you're exactly where you need to be, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and just believing in yourself to your best of your capabilities. Especially if you compare yourself to others, there will always be a belief in your mind that there's somebody better than you. You'll never ever sit there and look at the ones that may not be as good as you. You'll only look at the ones that you think are better than you, but I guarantee you those people are struggling with certain ideals as well. We never know what's in other people's hearts and heads. That's why we should meet everybody with love. All right, now you're so much smarter than me. Go.
You took all the words right out of my mouth. I think that Mr. Hall you did a really wonderful job, and not that you cry, but like being vulnerable, sharing our stories, and that's what we should be doing, sharing more of our stories. I think that for you and I, we have very similar experiences of not being the best student in high school and then just working, realizing our potentials and our skills when we get to college, and that's okay. You don't have to go straight to a 4-year university. If you could, yes, go, because it's great experience, but just because you have a 2.8 or 2.0 GPA right when you get out of high school, as long as you get your high school diploma, you have a start over. You go to Moore Park College or whatever community college that's nearby and try again. Don't give up. I forgot the question, but I think
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, imposter syndrome, just the comparing, right? Like, don't go on social media and compare yourself. Oh, look at that person, they're my age and they're doing X, Y, and Z. Look at the person, your colleague, and think, oh, that person has way more experience. They were a great student in high school. They are able to do X, Y, and Z. They have all these leadership skills. Great if they have it, but that doesn't mean that you're any lesser than they are. You have just as much as an experience as that person. If not, maybe a little bit more, because we struggle a little bit, so we can connect a little bit more with our struggling students. So don't compare yourself. You're amazing.
I think that if you don't have a little bit of that imposter syndrome, then there's probably, I think it's just a reality. All of us struggle with that. Like, are we good enough? Have we done enough? Can we strive to do more? Are we in the right place? Is somebody doing it better? It was already touched on, but that's something that we all struggle with, are we good enough? And if you're questioning that and you're thinking about that, then yes, you are. I mean, going back to the individual who wrote the question, you've won awards, you're doing well academically, and you still believe that you're not enough, well, use that to your benefit. Use that to continue to strive and to work harder, because you're doing things, you're doing well, and it's going to continue to motivate you to greater success. So if you are looking to others and you're saying, am I good enough? Am I like them? You don't want to necessarily compare yourself. As Ms. Nguyen said, you don't want to get onto social media and say, I'm not as good enough, I'm not like them, but use that to your advantage. Look at what they're doing. Look at how all the great things that you're doing, and continue to strive for that success.
I agree with what everyone has said so far. Definitely, I think success comes in different forms and looks different for everyone. So there's no measure of success, in a worldly sense, there's no measure of what is how successful someone is. That can look different for everyone. So really comparing yourself, I think, is if it comes to a point where it's like very detrimental for your mental health, I don't think it's like a good thing to like see as like, oh, I'm like motivating myself if I compare myself. And when it comes out like at the consequence or like risk of like your own like well-being mentally and physically. But I think like coming to school and seeing so many people from different backgrounds, like success really is different for everyone. Like I know this one kid, he dropped out of high school, but he's at UCLA and he owns his own business, and like so success is really different, and like pursue what you love.
And Gia, was there a second question from social media? All right.
Yes, this question is directed towards Ashlyn. At UCLA, what extracurriculars are you involved in that help balance your student life?
Okay, so for me, like as a freshman, there's like, I want to say there's actually so many like clubs on campus, like organizations and everything, that it's like hard. It's actually hard to like choose what you want to join. But I think for me, finding like a community can be challenging because just of like the vast quantity of like pre-med clubs, like there's like even Greek life and like a bunch of different like social clubs, career readiness clubs as well. So for me, right now I'm like dancing at UCLA for this like culture club. And so I think just like even like doing something, because it's like not like a competitive club or anything like that, it's just like something more just like performance, like very casual. I think joining stuff like that and getting plugged into a community, doing something that you love is like something that's important. And then also just to like kind of like stay on track with everyone, joining like, I'm in like a couple of pre-med clubs because I'm on the pre-med track right now. Just figuring out what like mission statements for each club really like resonates with you is important. And then like getting involved doing like community service with them. And then you can also like build really good connections with just people in general, I think.
Awesome, thank you guys so much. Thank you, social media. So for this next portion, we're actually going to take some questions from the audience engagement. So can our audience engagement members please come up to the front? Okay, perfect. We'll start with Sanchita.
This question is directed to Ms. Nguyen, and this is from a student in this audience. She says, my friend is getting cyberbullied and it is affecting her grades. How can I help her cope with that?
I get this question all the time because cyberbullying, and we had a big conversation about this last year. I would start off really encouraging your friend, whoever you are in the audience, encouraging your friend to go talk to a trusted adult on campus. Your counselor, let's start there. Your administrator, your principal, assistant principal, whoever that person may be. Cyberbullying is not a joke. It just doesn't go away. Like Mr. Hall mentioned earlier, before, if you want to bully somebody, you have to go up and face them face to face. And then it goes away when you go home, for the most part, right? Cyberbullying, your friend, this person, is dealing with this feeling and thinking consistently. There's no break. There's no escaping from your phone. This constantly happening, and I'm sure your friend's checking it all the time, whether or not they want to. It's they want to know what else is happening. So please get some help because, like I said, usually it doesn't go away by itself.
And then we'll head over to Tanvi for a second one.
An anonymous student from Royal High School has a question directed towards Dr. Snodgrass. With the experience of helping many students, what barriers do you see that exist in accessing mental health services within an educational setting?
So some barriers obviously are people. So just the human resources. And we've done a great deal to enhance opportunities for our students, especially at the secondary level, to have access to additional counselors that are on campus, as well as a partnership with an organization, Daybreak, where we're able to do referrals for students who have some of the initial mental health needs, but of course also our social workers. So we're really fortunate that with the increase of counseling, the Daybreak partnership, and then our 2 additional additional social workers who have 10 social worker interns that are on our secondary campuses, that we can make connections for our students. So it really has to do with the human resources as a barrier, but we've had leaps and bounds of access in the last 4 years where we've been able to provide additional supports. So if anyone is having issues that are in the audience, there's a student who said that a friend was having a problem, it really goes back to reaching out and finding a trusted adult on campus and letting them know that you are struggling. And that's what it really comes down to. And even if it's not you personally who is struggling, you see that there is a friend who is struggling, you make sure that you're making a connection with an adult so that they can then in turn find help for you.
If I may add one more thing, we have an anonymous tip line. Please go on it. We don't need to know who you are. We just need to know the person that is struggling with whatever it is that's going on. We don't have to expose you. We really just want to help our students to make sure that they're safe.
Thank you so much. And for our last one, we'll head over to Claire.
Ashlyn from Sinaloa Middle School asks, I am a student who in certain situations has needs different than most students. I am recognized as neurodivergent by my therapist, but have not been specifically diagnosed with any disorders that affect learning. How can I appropriately communicate my needs with my teachers? Directed to Mr. Hall.
Oh, all right. I would figure go through your counselor first. Let's have your counselor be your mouthpiece towards your teachers. And then, there are certain things in place that we could put in place, whether it be a 504 or SST, somewhere along those lines, which are, kind of education jargon that we could put in place, and they'll give your teachers the, the accommodations that may be needed inside a classroom to help.
All right. So this question is directed towards Dr. Snodgrass. With the increased prevalence of substance abuse and drugs within student populations throughout the county, many are peer pressured or otherwise forced to make concerning decisions. In fact, according to a recent survey from the Simi Valley Youth Council of over 1,000 secondary education students, we found that 25% of students completely agree and 42% somewhat agree with the notion that substance abuse is prominent in their schools. How would you suggest students distance themselves from such negative influences and make more positive decisions?
This is not just an issue that we're seeing with our youth, but nationwide with adults as well. And it really comes back to another statement that I made earlier. It's about the knowledge that the impact that consuming any of those products, the negative impacts that they're going to have. But it really goes down to, again, what we're trying to put into place. So the preventative measures. So we have programs on our campuses to ensure that students, are not taking part in these activities. If you see something, you say something. So if you do see that someone is engaging in that type of activity, using the We Tip line, making sure that adults know. But you are actually our best informatives. We need to know from you what is going on so that we can then put preventative measures in place on campus. The long-term lasting effects we know are only going to have negative impact on your personal lives, and the long-term effects could have an impact in a variety of ways. But it's really, it comes down to making sure that we don't have access to those products. And in order for us to not have access to those products on our campuses and in our communities really is up to you. And making sure that we know about it. So again, going back to that, see something, say something, make sure that we're knowledgeable what's out there so that we can then put preventative measures in place.
Thank you.
This question is directed towards all the panelists. So the common ideology is that mental health has gotten progressively worse over the past couple years and has been particularly hitting this generation the hardest. From the time you were a student to you being an educator and adult now, do you believe that this ideology is true? And if so, what was different about your high school experience? And we'll start with Mr. Hall.
No, I don't think it's any worse than it was when we were kids. A lot of times I compare when I was a kid to what you guys are going through now. There's one massive difference, which is social media. Mm-hmm. But I believe the mental health issues were there when I was a kid. I just don't think they were diagnosed or even talked about. So, there's no great answer. I think the fact that we're actually talking about mental health and we're actually putting importance on it is wonderful It's positive because it lets us all know, anxiety was very real when I was a kid, just nobody said it. And so knowing that there are others out there that feel the same way as you, or that feel the same sort of imposter syndrome or whatever we're talking about, it's a little more freeing and a little more opening to, I think, I haven't gone through it now myself. And it also helps us get the help we need.
Yeah, I think removing the stigma is a really important step the first one we have to take.
Yeah, so I'll add on to what you just said in terms of social media. I think that with the rise in social media, and there are new platforms coming out, it feels to me like every month, and also the rise in technology. So this generation, there's just so much distraction going on. Video games, your phones, your smartphones, YouTube, social media. And so it takes away a lot of the time that you should be connecting with people. It takes away the most important thing that I feel like we're not talking about enough, which is sleep. Like, just with the students in this room, can you show me with your fingers, like, how many hours of sleep are you sleeping at night?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna faint, okay.
No, some
9, okay, I see 7, 3.5, 4, 7, 6, 1. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and put your hands down. So
I love the ones where it was 10.
Yes, in
Yeah,
case
that was nice.
you guys didn't know, we're gonna bring it back. Started a conversation.
I think you struck a nerve with that question.
Yeah, I think, going back to my point, I don't know if you all know, but as a teenager at your age, the amount of sleep that you should be sleeping at night is 8 to 10 hours. Whoa. Guess what? Sleep is the most important thing for you. Not only is it good for your studying, your academic, your memories, but it regulates your emotions, your ability to make good choices. And so when I'm having a conflict with my friend or a friend, and if I didn't sleep enough, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna lash out. But if I had enough good sleep, I'm like, oh, it's okay, we'll talk about it. It regulates so much, and we're not doing enough of that. Distraction, which also leads to less sleep, which leads to that increase of mental health. Distraction leads to the isolation. I want to be by myself, I want to play video games, I'm just going to do this and socialize with my friends. And so then we become sad, we have all these thoughts. And being sad is not a bad thing, but being sad and being alone is a bad thing. And so I think that, going back to my point, technology and social media with the rise have been a huge impact to the increase that we're seeing.
Thank you. Dr. Snodgrass?
Well, I would agree that I don't think that mental illness has changed or shifted, but we have had more of that. We've removed the stigma and we're talking about it. And so this allows for us to engage in a conversation so that we can provide help and support. Ms. Nguyen hit on a huge area that is much different than, Mr. Hall and I are in the same vintage of our age. So we didn't have social media. We didn't have that connection to others. So when we were trying to connect with people, it was through notes that we were passing in class. When we wanted to get in connection with someone, we had to wait for them to call our actual home phone. When we were a little bit older, we had a pager, and so maybe we could get connected that way. But right now, you're completely connected in a way that is so different than ever before. And you have this way of looking into others' lives and comparing yourself. And so that, I think, leads to some of the dialogue, that inner dialogue that you have, going back to that imposter syndrome, or, am I good enough? Am I like my peers? Is my family the same? Do I have the same experiences the next person? So it gives you this insight into a world that we didn't have an insight into unless we were watching television and that was a fake portrayal. So there's this different level of experiences that all of you are confronted with. But in regards to the challenges that you experience and the stresses that you have, they're still similar in nature, but I think we're more aware of how we can handle them and supports that we can provide.
I agree with that statement. I think well, I can't really speak on the comparison part, but knowing that I'm around the age of some of you guys here, obviously social media plays a big part, and now we have this new factor of communication with people. But I think in general, there's there's no increase. It's just that we have more resources and more availability to talk about our struggles openly with trusted adults. So I think just as resources are becoming more accessible to kids of all ages, I think just that kind of relationship, reaching out to those resources and getting those resources, because I know that they're being implemented, just reaching out to them will be on the rise more and kind of help just solve some of those mental health struggles that we have that are associated with school.
Okay, we have one more question for Mr. Hall before we transition into the rapid fire portion of our discussion. So the question is, as a principal, Mr. Hall, you're aware of the overwhelming importance of student-parent communication when it comes to dealing with academic and social challenges. How can students effectively communicate their academic needs and challenges to their parents, helping them foster a more supportive environment?
That's a hard question, man. I mean, how can students communicate with their parents? Have open dialogue. Open dialogue. Honestly, if you feel my wife and I look at things very differently when it comes to my kids, right? So having seen students progress through the years of school, I take a very different approach when it comes to my kids. And it's simple. Best effort. If I'm seeing your best effort in school, I don't care what the grades are. My wife wants A's. It's a difference. It's a difference. But what my son needs to do is now have an open line of communication with my wife, right? And tell her, this is my best effort. And if there's issues that are causing that best effort, then the communication piece, because they say it takes a village to raise a child, right? So we're part of that village, the communication piece, that your parents are your advocates for what you need in school. So if you're not having an open communication, open conversation, and most conversations, when your parents get in the car or however you get home, or you get home and you're eating dinner, whatever it is, you go, hey, how was school? Good. All right, cool, that was a good conversation. Maybe expand that dialogue to actually telling them what you need. And parents need to learn the skills of not just asking how school was. Then maybe give me the best part of your day. Break down the day period by period. For high school, it's a little easier since it's only 3 periods a day. But or whatever it is, parents need to find a different way to communicate with you as well. And realize that we've been in your shoes. Maybe not exactly what you're going through. All of us experience different experiences. But parents have been in your shoes, so maybe they have a bit of an understanding as to what you're going through. Thank you. Communication.
Okay, so now we're going to head into our rapid fire portion to wrap up the discussion. So I'll start, and then we'll go to Adi. So I'm just going to ask one question. We'll do a group question, and each panelist will have about 30 to 45 seconds to answer. Okay. Cool. So to wrap up, what would you want the students' main takeaways to be from this event? Mr. Hall, yeah.
My first and foremost, meet each other with love. You don't know what anybody's going through next to you, and meeting them with love versus anger is such an important facet in life. Whether they may respond to you differently, but you sit there and just not take offense and meet them with love.
Okay. Every single one of you, adult to students, you're all going through something very difficult in your life. I don't know it, but you're going through it. You're climbing through your mountains of challenges in life. Whatever that may be, don't do it alone. Have somebody reach out, know that somebody will be there and want to be there. You're not a burden. You're not bothering us. We are here. We do this work not to be rich, but we do this work because we truly believe in you. We love working with children and students, and we're not going to give up on you.
I'm going to go back to connection. So each of you have the opportunity to go and make a connection with someone that you think is not connected. So I challenge each of you to find someone on your campus that you might not feel is involved, or might need a friend, might need to feel love, that you don't know what they're going through. So there's someone out there that needs you, and they are going to reap the benefits of you getting them connected.
I think for me, it's like, I know everyone, like secondary education is on this like journey of like self-discovery. I think just like emphasizing finding what you love and doing that with like a full heart.
Okay, our last question is, overall, what do you think us students can do to combat the prevalent issue of academic and social stress in schools? Again, Mr. Hall, we begin with you.
Deep breaths, man, deep breaths. It's all good. Look, if you've seen two people that are relatively successful that may not have been the best students academically in school, just take it easy. And yeah, to echo both my colleagues, we're here because we care. It is not a labor of money, it's a labor of love. So we care about you guys, know that, and know you'll have somebody that's always going to be a supporter in one of your educators on your campus.
Academic is important. It opens up many different doors, but so is being social and being out and doing the fun things. You know, try not to worry about so much about the future, because that creates a lot of anxiety of the unknown, living in the unknown. Focus on the present. And this is a cheesy thing. The present is called the present because it's a gift, right? Go to the prom, go to the dances, go to all these extracurricular activities for our folks that cannot afford it. If you're experiencing homelessness, if you're a foster youth, we have the funding and resource to make sure that you're able to attend all of these events. Okay, so come ask for help. You're not alone. We can help you.
Yeah. I think it's all going to be okay. And so I guess I will share. I was not the best student either. I did not do well in high school. I was right there on that 2.0, 3.0 GPA as well. And I didn't go straight on to a four-year university. And that's okay. It all does work out. And it wasn't until, there's a little bit difference with Mr. Hall and Ms. Nguyen, but I found my passion when I was a senior in high school. Like, that's when I got more involved. I joined leadership. And you know why? Because it was one person. It was one person in my Spanish class who turned to me and said, I think you would be great in leadership. I think that you should come and join and get more involved. And that was the best year of my high school career. And that was the opportunity for me to really start exploring and what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that was give back to students, go back onto high school campuses, and to create those experiences where kids are more involved. So really, it's all going to work out, but it really is that opportunity for you to get involved and get connected with your peers.
Yes, I also think like establishing those connections, like getting connected with the upperclassmen will help you, like, as they'll give you advice and like tips on like how to navigate the unknown, and then also getting connected with those who are younger than you so you can give back, because I think that like really feeds the soul. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for those answers, and thank you for your time and coming out today. We appreciate all of your input, and I do hope that everyone walks away more knowledgeable than before about this issue. And that concludes the 2024 Town Hall.